1-hour extended version of our regular monthly Business Central update webinar. We've extended it for an hour to allow some time to take you through some of the reflections that we've had coming back from Directions EMEA last week in Vienna. Will McEntee will be taking us through those, and later on William will be going into the more standard Business Central update for you. I will be keeping everybody on mute because we're expecting a rather big crowd today. We have over 200 registrations, so let's see how many we end up being. So interact via the chat window there on the right hand side if you have questions, if you want to make a comment. We want to make this as interactive as possible. It's also for commenting, not only for questions. We are a community, so share your views in the chat window. As you see, I'm recording. I will be sharing the recording both as a recording and with the slides later on today in the Partner Portal Asset Library. So let's start. Will, take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Anna. Much appreciated. So welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. And sorry if this is interrupting your lunch break. It's certainly interrupting mine. But don't worry, I won't rush too much to get to my afternoon sandwiches. So thanks for joining the call about Directions 2019. And William's going to be running us through. So this is quite confusing, by the way. We have two Williams. I'm Will McEntee, and we also have William 4000, who's going to walk you through the Business Central updates. So if we jump on to the next slide, Anna, that'd be great. So we had a really interesting time at Directions last week. Vienna is a very cool venue. If you haven't been to Vienna, I could strongly recommend it to everybody there. So we had a lot of good coverage from the QBS community, both QBS employees and QBS partners at Directions. To be honest, sometimes it became hard to not find a QBS partner or a QBS employee. We seem to be everywhere, which is very cool and speaks a lot to the fact that we've got a growing community and a growing presence on Directions. So Anna, if we could jump on to the next slide, that'd be great. So what we're going to share with you today is our thoughts from Directions and give you some additional updates. And so if we jump into the next slide, Anna, we can talk about one of the big themes from the event, which was emotion. The emotions that partners have felt, I've got to say, over the last 3 Directions that I've attended, have varied widely between the one on the left and the one on the right. Either fear and confusion on the left, or absolute joy and happiness on the right. And why is that? Well, we all know that we're in a very much a changing marketplace. Microsoft are leading cloud first. Customers are asking for cloud first, and we as partners are trying to invest and keep up as best we can with the advances in technology, advances in product, and advances in not just the technology side of things, but also the way our business models need to evolve. And quite frankly, depending upon which day of the week, we can either feel as if we're on the left-hand side with that fear and confusion, or on the right-hand side with this joy and happiness that we're starting to see. Now, it's funny, if I was to do a rough survey over the last 3 years, I would say that 3 years ago, 80% of us were on the left-hand side and 20% on the right-hand side. 2 years ago, probably 50-50 split between what I would describe as confusion and lack of happiness versus that on the right. Whereas this Directions felt really interesting because I think we got to see some real success and real progress that partners have made with Business Central SaaS and building out their cloud practice and their cloud models. So just wanted to kind of highlight that because look, we're really lucky at QBS. We get to speak to, not just the people at Directions, but those of you who weren't lucky enough to be at Directions this year, to kind of gauge where the community are at in terms of their feelings and their around cloud. And it was really great to see, quite frankly, that so much strong progress has been made with partners. And if we jump on to the next slide, Anna, we can talk a little bit about what is maybe causing some of this happiness. So during the keynote session presented by Toby Bowers and Cecilia, we got to see some really interesting statistics around the performance of Business Central. I'll call out a few of them now. So number one is the 1,400 plus partners selling Business Central. Now, that's really interesting, because if you were to try really, really hard, you would struggle to find 1,400 NAV partners actively going out to win new business. So out of that 1,400 of partners selling Business Central, there are quite a few newcomers into that market, whether that's from the Office 365 space, the customer engagement space, or indeed the competitive channel space. That statistic made a lot of partners lean forward in the auditorium, because it's pretty significant. The number of apps that are today on AppSource, again, has grown. Well, I think they told us that it had doubled in the last 6 months, if I remember correctly, which again is something that we should all be leaning into and paying attention to. Now, here's a stat that I found to be really interesting. When Business Central first went to market back in April, and indeed later for some of you on this call with different localizations, the number of users, everyone was saying, was very light. Not many users on initial Business Central deals. What we've seen over time is that the user count per new ad has doubled. All right, so we're seeing less, how would I describe it, less pure core financial deployments, kind of like Business Edition was, versus proper full-blown ERP. And also, actually, the feedback we got from the product team was, when they look at the telemetry of the usage of the platform, they're seeing manufacturing utilized, they're seeing manufacturing, jobs, service management, are all being used as well. So it's kind of shifted, and I think this is a mind shift as well. Shifted from just being a core financials through to full ERP, and that I think is because the more mature partners, of which a load of you on this call belong to that group, are really getting behind Business Central SaaS. And the great news for all of us is that we saw last year 200% year-on-year growth in partner revenue associated to Business Central SaaS. So again, that's super cool. Then if we think about one of the other statistics which kind of backs up that 1,400 plus partners selling Business Central, is that most partners have the thing in common, which is they sell more than one Dynamics 365 workload. And again, speaking with a load of partners throughout the 3 days, was that the number of partners who are selling customer engagement and or Power Apps has grown hugely. So my ask, my demand of you guys on this call is that if you're not actively pursuing a customer engagement strategy, whether that is building out your own customer engagement capability or building out your own Power Apps capability, is to make sure you're working with somebody, with another organization that complements you in that respect. Because we see this again and again and again, and this is something that Microsoft talked about a lot, that selling the Dynamics 365 stack as a whole, as opposed to individual components, is incredibly successful. Okay, so please do bear that in mind. then if we kind of look at some further momentum, around business applications, we kind of break this out into Dynamics 365, Power Platform, and indeed AppSource. Is that, you know, Microsoft is like a moth attracted to the flame of revenue, and this Microsoft moth is being drawn to the flame of growth. So 45% year-on-year growth for Dynamics 365 is a huge internal statistic for Microsoft. Microsoft really are seeing, you know, this incredibly strong growth, and that has a huge bearing on their investments going forward. And you know, whilst all of us on this call may not deal significantly in the big enterprise space, when they see impact in enterprise, that again has impact on us in the SMB space, because we see triple-digit growth in CSP across SMB. So that's like a huge thank you to everybody on this call for driving that growth. That is absolutely huge and well done. It's very hard to have a conversation with anybody from Microsoft without Power Platform being part of the conversation. This was front and center of directions, and was very much something which we heard a lot about. And the number of apps that have been developed on Power Platform has gone up 7 times in the last 12 months. Now, you know, for all of us on this call, we're all experienced in the dynamic space. We know that Power Platform has come from pretty much a startup basis 24 months ago, but actually there's no sign of this momentum declining. And again, you know, there are a lot of Power App sessions throughout directions, and a lot of the discussions in the bars afterwards were certainly about Power Platform as well. And like I said, you know, AppSource is something that got a lot more airtime in the last in this direction compared to the previous directions. Okay, so performance, Business Central is fantastic. Power Platform, customer engagement are all being looked at as part of the Business Central performance as well. Okay, so by selling together, we are more successful. Okay, so that was the key theme around the Business Central performance. So Anna, can we jump on to the next slide? Thank you very much. So let's be honest, guys. We love the technology. We are huge fans, whether it's of NAV or Business Central. But for those of us who run our own business and own our own balance sheet and own our own profit and loss, we kind of want to understand what's in it for us, right? And a lot of the talk was around the changing nature of valuation. And the changing nature of shareholder value to our organizations. And it's really interesting. I think a lot of you have probably heard of a gentleman called George Brown and a gentleman called Dana Wilmer. These two guys have been around the channel for a very, very long time, and they do a lot of partner profitability modeling. They also have designed the total cost of ownership calculator for shifting Business Central on-prem to the cloud. They've also done the profitability models to help you kind of model out and test what your business can look like over the next 3 to 5 years. So these are guys who've been around for a long, long time. They spent the last 12 months doing some deep dive analysis of what's happening within the marketplace, primarily in North America and Europe, but looking at the marketplace from a partner perspective in terms of what's making partners money, where market opportunity for partners sits, and actually what valuation of partner businesses is beginning to look like. So traditionally, partner businesses were typically valued based upon EBITDA and a multiplier against EBITDA. And depending upon, let's call it the health of the balance sheet, that would be a multiplier on EBITDA of typically from 2.5% to, if we were very lucky with lots of IP, of in excess of times 10. Now, what we're seeing with the big shift into cloud or recurring, really strong recurring revenues with high margins, we're starting to see partner organizations being acquired for valuations based upon revenue as opposed to EBIT. And I think this is really important for us to bear in mind when it comes to asking those questions about what investments that we should make within our, to make our own organization, more in tune with the cloud and the Microsoft Business Central Power Apps customer engagement story. Because a lot of it comes down to product, quite frankly. So what we're hearing around the opportunity for ISVs is that it's kind of twofold. Is number one, if you're taking your own vertical IP into a sales situation, you have a far greater chance of not only winning that bit of business, but actually downstream your recurring gross margin against your business is far higher, and that has a huge impact on potential valuation and shareholder value going forward. So so the fact that there is a great ISV opportunity, and we compare that to the great growth trajectory of Dynamics 365, it says to me that there's a really good chance to see strong return on investment for your business. And that's kind of also backed up by the fact that we're seeing, quite frankly, a lot of new entrants into the Business Central market. So I talked about the 1,400 partners on the previous slide, but for a long time we kind of lived in this closed shop of NAV. That closed shop of NAV seems to hasn't certainly gone away, because that's still the basis for Business Central success going forward. What we're actually seeing is a lot of new entries, and we're seeing a lot of successful new entrants from the competitive space. So, for example, in the UK, we see Sage. In Denmark, we see Economica. So we're seeing these organizations, these partner organizations, these implementers that get and understand ERP and cloud accounting, realizing that, hey, Dynamics 365 is a horse to back. Now, where we have the advantage as experienced, let's say, Navists or Navisionistas, as I heard at Directions, is we know the product inside out. You know the product inside out. You know your customers inside out. You probably know some amazing industries inside out. That's your competitive advantage, and that's how you'll be able to grow your business incredibly profitably over the next few years with this cloud opportunity. So partner profitability sounds like it's up, which is incredibly cool, because I go back to my happy face and not happy face in the previous two slides. There's a lot more happy people who are feeling a lot more comfortable with the cloud economic model today than there were last year, and certainly were 2 years ago. So please bear this in mind. So that's the key message around partner profitability. So Anna, let's jump on to the next slide. Okay, so migration. This is typically one of the it's really interesting, because I think last year Microsoft set this incredibly ambitious target around customer migration, and the feedback from the delegates at Directions was, well, give us some tools, give us a better product, give us a more stable product. Do we want to risk moving our very safe customers from their on-premise or their private hosted solution into Business Central SaaS? The overwhelming answer, based upon numbers, has been up until now, ooh, that's not a great idea. However, there did seem to be quite a lot more positivity around. There did seem to be a lot more positivity around migration compared to last year, and certainly actually based upon conversations in the last 6 months. And that's kind of down to a few things. It's one, we as a community are getting better at understanding and relaying the information to our customers around the total cost of ownership benefits to our customers, which has actually been a bit of a struggle up until now. We are seeing some really green shoots around migrating customers to cloud. 6 months ago, it was like a desert, quite frankly, guys. And again, this was feedback. This was feedback from directions, but we are starting to see some really strong movement. And when we talk about migration, we're not just talking about migration of our customers into the cloud, but actually our IP into the cloud. The number of conversations that we had around shifting our IP from Seaside to extensions was quite frankly, that was the biggest topic of conversation. And the biggest number of conversation around the how as opposed to the why. Last year, a lot of it was why. Why should I be moving? Now a lot of it is around the how. And we've got to get better at being able to talk to the customer about the why shift to the cloud. But you've also got to figure out what your strategy is around that why cloud and why customers should move across, because we are getting a lot of customers coming to us and asking. And one thing Microsoft were really super clear about was that if you're not having the conversation with your customers about shifting to the cloud, they will have that conversation. And if there's one easy way to put let's call it the trust of your customer at risk, is if you are not seen to be bringing forward the right message. Okay, so that was something that I took away from a number of meetings with Microsoft, and again attending a few of the sessions around why migrate now. Okay, I don't think we should be frightened of it anymore. There's a lot of tools out there to help you move stuff across. Like, for example, with the one-click factory, you've got that cool analyzer tool that was actually launched last week at Directions to help you understand what the cost of that cloud shift looks like. So if you want assistance with your cloud migration strategy, just speak to your local QBS representative. So Anna, can we jump onto the next one? And
yeah, well, I just saw that you accidentally clicked twice, so we didn't get this slide up.
Oh, we clicked twice. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
I thought we'd missed one. Thank you, Anna, for highlighting that. So talking about this, and this kind of links in a little bit with the migration piece. So first of all, I wanted to talk to you about the Microsoft investments and what we've seen around the Microsoft investments. So number one, Microsoft has really doubled down on their awareness around CSP, cloud solution provider, and the potential impact that can have on partner businesses. So historically, for those of you who sold on-prem, you used to like that big fat lump of on-premise license revenue up front. That's obviously gone away or going away with the advent of CSP. But Microsoft recognized that it actually acts as quite a strong incentive to drive sales. So Microsoft have made big investments in terms of the incentives around Business Central. They've applied a 5% accelerator to the rebate that you get, but they've also got this fantastic incentive around customer acquisition. So once you have a customer that's achieved $1,000 CSP revenue in a month, you'll get 20% of that annual revenue back as a rebate, which that's something that's quite frankly been unheard of around Dynamics 365 since CSPs was launched, and that's a big deal. So Microsoft are making big investments around incentives to help drive Business Central acquisition, and also they're spending a lot of money on digital marketing around Dynamics 365, and they're making big investments in the people within their inbound digital response team in Dublin. So that's really reassuring, quite frankly. Sometimes we've always felt like the poor cousin from an NAV perspective when it comes to the rest of the business application space, but actually to see some of these investments kind of really highlighted this actually made partners feel really good, and the feedback was incredibly strong. So that was very cool. But they're also making investments in, yes, there is going to be certification. I'll be honest, didn't hear a date. I'll be asking for a date, but I didn't hear the date. But then if we think about, we're going to see additional advisories coming through, and we're also going to be able to start monitoring the utilization of the application. Now, William's going to be covering the details around roadmap and some of the investments, but I just wanted to kind of call out the 4 pillars of investment that we're seeing around Business Central, which is number 1, they want a really strong and stable and reliable world-class cloud service. They want to make sure that the usability of the tool set the usability of the user interface is as strong as possible. And they want to ensure that they've got the right set of enablement tools for you, the partners, to make the application even better. And they're going to carry on adding additional functionality to the solution as well. So again, very, very good news. And quite frankly, it was quite nice. There was no big bang. There's no big shock. There's no big shocks. No big news. But I've got a lot of. My feeling is that it's because now we're in the world of cloud, is that we're just going to see lots and lots and lots of incremental changes. So thanks. So Anna, I think I've got a couple of slides left. If we could shift on beyond next one, here we go. Okay, one thing that caught a lot of the room by surprise, and this is why this photo has its own, this slide has its own single photo on it, was around the support lifecycle. This news was actually announced about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it still seemed to take a lot of people by surprise based upon the gasps of shock and indeed horror within the room. All right, which is the way the support lifecycle policy for Business Central is changing, and it also, I should say, has changed as of October, which is that you will be in place for the support policy will be in place for up to 18 months. So 12 months plus 6 months. So that, if, for example, if you're on BC 13, that's actually about to shift out of policy. BC 14 and 15 will have this policy attached to them. No longer the 5 years plus 5 years extended. We've already had a couple of partners caught out by that. Please make sure that you are on top of it. I'm not going to go into it in detail. We have done some Yammer posts around it, but just wanted to kind of highlight that. So Anna, can we jump on to the next one? So what now? So my conclusion is focus, focus, focus. So choose a path, go for it. The partners that we are succeeding are those that are building packaged IP, building repeatable solutions and repeatable ways of deployment. We've seen really strong uptake from our live in a day methodology as well. And we're seeing partners working with partners more so than ever before. But the key for me is focus. What are you going to be famous for in the next 12 to 24 months? Is it going to be creating great IP? Is it going to be revolutionizing the way that you do your sales and marketing? Pick a focal point and go for it, is my absolute key takeaway from directions. So Anna, next one. So very quickly, guys, super quick licensing update. This shouldn't be news to you, because this is we have covered this off a little bit in the past. Can we just jump straight into the next one, if that's okay?
Next one again.
Yes, please. Yep. Oh, my screen's not refreshed. Ah, there we go. Okay. So for those of you who do customer engagement or finance and operations, this hopefully isn't news to you, where customers need, where we've moved away from the plan, the unified operations plan and the customer engagement plan. You now need to buy the base license and then attach licenses for it. Okay, so we have got some webinars and we have done some Yammer posts around this. This wasn't really covered at directions. It just seemed like a good chance to remind you of some of these licensing changes. So as of 1st of October, it's already happened. The unified operations plan, the Dynamics 365 plan, the customer engagement plan, no longer. We now have the base plus attach model. All right. Okay, Anna, next slide, please. Okay. So then there was also a new SKU as of the 1st of October, which is the From SA SKU, which is basically the 40% discount SKU applicable to either AX, NAV, GP, SL, or indeed CRM Online. There is this 40% discount in place. There are quite a few questions around that need clarifying around this, which is, for example, around dual use rights and how long the 40% discount stays in place. Please bear with us whilst we're waiting for an official notice from Microsoft, and that's for Business Central as well as the other sales apps and the finance and operations app. So, but I think, quite frankly, this 40% discount is another great reason that we should be having a conversation with your customers today, okay? Because basically Microsoft are saying, look, we thank you very much for paying Brett for so long. As a reward for your loyalty, here's a 40% discount. Okay. Anna, next slide, please. And then again, this has kind of been talked about a little bit, but I'm never going to miss an opportunity to talk about something so important. The new Microsoft partner agreements are currently out. If you haven't signed it yet, please do sign it, because if you haven't got it signed by January the 31st, you will not be able to order new stuff. All right, so that's obviously pretty important. So whoever in your business is responsible for signing the Microsoft agreements, please make sure that they have done that. Okay, thank you. And Anna, next slide. We're here to help you guys. Reach out to either myself or your QBS partner success manager or someone in the operations team. More than happy to help you with some of the key themes from Directions EMEA. So I'm going to hand over to William now. He's going to walk you through some of the cool new tech of Business Central.
Thank you, Will. William, are you there?
That's all right.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Are you able to move the slides yourself, or do you need me to do it? Can you try?
No, I have no control, so we will do it the same as
Yes.
with Will.
You do.
Okay, so next slide, please, Em. Yeah, my name is William. I'm a PTS and a product specialist for Business Central. Need no further introduction as I do the monthly Business Central updates. Next slide, please. We have a little half an hour left, so it will be a little bit of a roller coaster, but these are the topics I would like to discuss with you, which is the roadmap, new features, some directions, changes or announcements or lessons learned. And yeah, let's dive into it right away. Next slide, please. This is the Business Central roadmap as presented on directions. And yeah, not a big bang as mentioned earlier, but you could see that yeah, with the October release, we get the modern client, it's AL. But what important for you guys is that the Business Central April release, so with the Windows client, is available to sell until October next year. And of course, the other important things are the future investments areas of Microsoft. And of course, they're going to enhance the application further, go to new countries and so on. But it's also good to know that they are heavily investing in the Power Platform in relationship to Business Central. And of course, continue the world-class cloud service. Next slide. It's an addition. Yeah, this is, please one slide back. Yes, thanks. It's once again the lifecycle change. And I don't want to drop a bomb, but there are some signals like changing the customer support lifecycle. And also, if you're looking to the future investments like the Power Platform and continue the world-class cloud service, and if you know that they're going to depreciate the basic authentication method, those are all stuff where Microsoft is able to say somewhere in the future that there is no need for a on-prem Business Central anymore. I'm not saying that they're going to kill on-prem in the near future, but there are a lot of signals. Next slide, please. So what's new? If you want to know everything about the new version, you of course can go to the Microsoft Docs. And I inserted all the links in this presentation, so afterwards you have all the direct links. You could watch the YouTube summary video, which highlights a lot, somewhere around 20 new features. Of course, you can follow them on Twitter. Of course, QBS, where we do some webinars and our regular Jammer posts. And here is a summary. So next slide, please. There's a lot of new stuff for the Business Central 2019 Wave 2 release. And I just want to highlight a few of them. For example, cancel reminders and final charge memos, or carry the line descriptions to the GL entries. These are typical features. In the past, we as partners have solved them by customizing the standard code and adding all these features because customers are requesting it. For you, it's a good moment to overlook your tailor-made solutions to see, okay, what's in it and what's already covered with the standard Business Central nowadays. Another one is the detailed notification for update events. This is important for you as a partner because the tenant administrators often have questions about the client actions when an environment update has failed, for example. And now you get detailed information about the update failure. So if an update to the new version of Business Central is failed, you get a list of probable solutions. Another one is the multiple production environments. For each tenant, administrators can create multiple production environments, also sandboxes, and this will include the option to be for environments to be different country specific. So you get region-specific Business Central versions. So you could have a Dutch localization and a German localization, for example. More on that later on in this webinar. Another one is the ability to download a database export file. First of all, this feature is delayed. It was on the plan for releasing in October, but it is delayed. And it's also good to know that you should not see this as a backup and restore functionality. It's just a ability to download the database export because many countries have legal requirements that customers must have access to the data files. And of course, this provides a way for customers to download the file locally, so you are able to import it in a local database. But you should not see this as a backup and restore functionality, because that's not the way it is currently. And once again, it's delayed. You could expect it somewhere later this calendar year. The next one I want to highlight is the new support request option in the Business Central Administration Center. Sometimes the tenant has run into a problem and you cannot resolve it on your own. Then it's very easy to submit the request at the Microsoft site. And the next one is that you as a partner are now able to insert your contact details in the Business Central Administration Center. And once a customer clicks on help in Business Central or is looking for more information on a certain feature, you could provide them the right email address or website or a portal of your company where they are able to submit tickets, for example. And of course, there are a lot of modern client enhancements. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the new features which comes along with the modern client, which is, of course, the web client. And yeah, I would like to highlight a few of them once again. So next slide, please. The first one is the ability to add links to your navigation menu. Of course, we had something similar in the Windows client, but now it's available in the web client, so in the modern client as well. It's very easy to bookmark a page, which will then show up in your navigation pane of the role center. And basically, this is available for all the pages which are accessible through the Tell Me or the search function. Next slide, please. Next new feature is that you are now able to add notes and links to data in the web client of Business Central, which was not available until today. And this also includes a new keyboard shortcut, which is Alt-O. And then you are able to create a new note. And it shows all the notes and links in the attachments with a number behind it. So you are able to see if there are any attachments on this record, for example, a customer card. Next slide, please. Once again, they've added a lot of new keyboard shortcuts. This is a print of the overview, which is now available on the Microsoft Docs site. And it does not contain every shortcut, but for example, the new ones, so that the users could be more productive. And what's very important for you is that you as a developer now also get the possibility to respond to the end user feedback by adding keyboard shortcuts to your solution. So if a customer or a lot of customers are asking for shortcuts for your specific solution, yeah, you are able to serve them because you are able to create your own keyboard shortcuts. For example, one new shortcut is missing. That's the function 9, where you're able to post with a shortcut. This is available in the new release as well. Next slide, please. A big complaint regarding the web client was the missing functionality regarding departments. We in the past were used to have departments where you have an overview of all the functionalities which are available in the solution. In the web client, we didn't have that, and now it's available with this new feature. And you're able to find the pages of features in this complete overview, because the navigation bar doesn't show all the functionality. And it's also good to know that you are able to explore them all, because you see only the actions and the pages and so on for your role center, but you're also able to discover other role centers. And one new functionality which is on the backlog for maybe wave 1 of 2020 is that you're able to search in this list. Next slide, please.
William, we have a question around the additional production environments, whether these come with additional license costs.
I will come back to that later on in this webinar. It's a good question for sure, but I've dedicated time for it.
Okay.
Come back to that. Yeah, thanks. Another new feature is the ability to personalize actions on your role center. You're first able to personalize the navigation menu. In NAV, we are used to have the navigation pane on the left. You're able to move menu links to another position within the same group or different groups. Of course, moving the menu groups or hide menus or hide actions. And you, of course, you're able to clear your personalization and restore it to the default navigation menu layout. Next slide, please. But you're also able to personalize the actions. So you're able to move them, hide them, and so on. And one specific note for on-prem, when you deployed Business Central 2019, the Wave 2 release, so this new release, all new personalization features are enabled by default. So personalization is no longer an opt-in feature and is now fully aligned across online and on-premise experience both. So they both behave in the same way. So good to know from this version on, the on-prem deployments, personalization features are enabled by default. Good to know for you as a partner. Next slide, please. A very small but also a very handy feature is that you're now able to move the columns or resize the columns just by clicking on the bar, and then you can swipe to the left or to the right. Next slide, please. With the April release, we were finally able to create our own views, but unfortunately those views were only saved on that current session, and the next time you logged in, you lost those views. And now you're able to save them, which is very common for us in the Windows client, of course, but now it's able in the web client as well. Next slide, please. Another new feature is the multitasking across the multiple pages. There is a new button on the different cards and pages in Business Central where you have the option to open it in a dedicated window. And one note here is that all the pages that are popped out in a separate window using this functionality are linked to the main page. So if you change something in one window, it will appear right away in the next window. And this is also good to know. It has a link with the new configuration where the timeout for the web server has changed to 2 hours. So yeah, that would basically lead to less please sign in again. Next slide, please. It's now possible to create the user profiles from the web client. Of course, we were used to do that with Windows clients where you as an admin were able to create the profiles, and now you're able to customize the roles from the web client as well. So similar to the profile configuration mode in Dynamics NAV as we experienced it, you're now able to do this on any production or sandbox environment, and that's a great enhancement. Next slide, please. With this wave, we introduced a new multi-selection control, as Microsoft said, and that's for the filtering for fields that were of the type option, because in the last version of Business Central, when you filter on this type of fields, you only could choose one. And now they've changed it, so this is treated as a OR operation. So in this case, you're filtering on chairs with the costing method or FIFO or LIFO. Next slide, please. The question, of course, how to get this new version. I guess some of you already have it, but for those who don't know, you need to go to the Business Central Admin Center. Be sure for the environments of your customer, of course, that you are set up as a notification recipient, because then you get an email when the new version for that specific tenant is available, because Microsoft is doing it in batches. You're able to set the schedule and the window, so please do that in advance. And of course, you for yourself could start with a sandbox. So just deploy a sandbox with the new version, and then you're able to deploy the latest version, and you have to wait until Microsoft has released it for your production environment. You are not able to do anything about that. Next slide, please. Some other important new stuff regarding Business Central or directions is the progress on the partner differentiation. You as a partner would like to stand out amongst your competition. So once again, the new certification will be in place this fiscal year. So that means before June 2020. It's good to know that it's a functional focused certification, and there is no concrete info on a technical track. And of course, the incentives, as Will discussed, and the telemetry, which is available in the Partner Center right now. But good to know the certification will come this fiscal year, but it seems to be only functional for this moment. Next slide, please. In one of the keynotes, Microsoft presented these slides, where they want to say to you, okay, please stay calm, there are no breaking changes. But of course, there are breaking changes, because otherwise we are not able to evolve the product in the coming years. So what it basically means is that they are going to do breaking changes only with a 1-year warning in advance. So what does this mean? Basically, everything what will be removed, it's an API or other objects or whatever, they will announce it 1 year upfront, so you have 1 year to adapt to it. So that's good to know. Next slide, please. Then the migration path. If you are on NIV on-prem or the Business Central October 18 release on-prem, the best way to migrate to the cloud, if you would like to, is first to go to the on-prem wave 1, so the April release, then to wave 2, and then use the Intelligent Cloud to go to Business Central SaaS. So there are some sub-steps to be taken. And this is more or less necessary because of some changes in the schemas and so on. And if you migrate, you only migrate the data which is available in the new solution. So therefore, there you need to take some sub-steps. Next slide, please. Another great news is that Business Central is now available on Microsoft Learn since a few weeks. That means basically that there are learning paths for Business Central on Microsoft Learn. Those are completely free and they're open to anyone. So both for you, but as well as for your end customers. And also the tracks and the modules which are presented there are both focusing on functional consultants, how to set something up, and also for focusing on the business users. For example, where you can see it in the picture is a assemble to order in Business Central, which is a module focusing on the end users. So yeah, pick your advantage of it, because Microsoft has deployed it. Don't reinvent the wheel, as we said, but yeah, just point your end customers to it, for example. And more info on that is presented in the link, which you get afterwards. Next slide, please. Regarding the sandboxes, there is some confusion, which is quite obviously because they're all saying something else. Because if you look at the Business Central license guide of October this year, it said with a Business Central license, you get one production environment, which is included. It's good to know that some license announcements will follow very soon, as it was said by Jared. What's the name of that guy? Jared Hall, I thought. And at least until 2020 Wave 1, so the next major release, each tenant, so if you buy a Business Central, you get the tenant, may create up to 3 production environments, 3 sandboxes at no additional licensing needed for the tenant. But as said, that's the information we have right now. Some license announcements will follow, but up until now, you're able to create 3 production environments and 3 sandboxes. You could choose the localization when you're firing up a new sandbox, but not the Azure region. So that's very good to know, because I don't know how the sentence was exactly in the keynote, but for example, James Crowther sent a tweet which led to a lot of confusion, because he said that we are able to choose and the localization and the database location. That is not true. You only can choose the localization, but not the Azure region. So if you choose to create a sandbox for Germany, then the data will be stored in the Germany version of the Azure region. For now, the consolidations between multiple environments is on the backlog. And for now, the inter-environment transactions will need to be done manually. So good to know. For now, 3 production environments, 3 sandboxes, and you're able to choose the localization, but not the database location. Next slide, please. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the backup and the download of the database, it's delayed. Probably it will be released in November this year, and yeah, because of the fact that many countries have the legal requirements. But as mentioned earlier, please don't see this as a backup and restore functionality, because it isn't at the moment. Next slide, please. On directions, a new productivity sheet was announced. It's a directions attendee exclusive, but hey, yeah, once we get it, we of course want to reshare it with all of you. So it will be posted somewhere on Jammer, and it covers more or less the basics of the new user interface, keyboard shortcuts, and some help on filtering and data entry. And yeah, it will be available for us as a download somewhere this week. And although yeah, at the end we will reshare it with you. Next slide, please. There were also some, not really announcements, but some sneak peeks in the changes for the App Store submission. Of course, Microsoft wants to do make a process which is a process which is more efficiently. So they are thinking of a quicker process where we get the semi-automated approval process, and maybe even full control for hotfixes, so that you don't have to wait for Microsoft people to go through your solution for a hotfix anymore. But it's currently under construction, but it's good to know that something like this is coming up in the future. Next slide, please. This is for the on-prem situation. If you are currently having some problems with the dual rights product keys, this is important for you. Partners may receive the following error when they try to get their customers' product keys for Dynamics 365 Business Central, and the error is as stated below. And for now, the quickest way to solve it is to email to that email address, and more info is available on our Jammer post, which is behind the link. So please have a look if this is applicable for you. Next slide, please. Yeah. They are going to depreciate the basic authentication method for the Outlook integration in Business Central. it will be no longer available per October 1st, 2020. And yeah, who is affected? That are those ones which use the nav user password, Windows or username as the authentication method and use Exchange Online. And what does not work anymore then? That's the business inbox in Outlook, of course, the synchronization of your contacts. And yeah, for those who have used Microsoft Bookings in the past, that won't work anymore. So if that's applicable for you, please have a look. I see that the link is not included in this slide. I will add the link and then share it with you. And of course, if I'm right, there is also a Gemma post regarding this subject. Next slide, please. Yep, there are some changes to the Business Central connectors for Flow, Logic Apps, and Power Apps, so more or less the complete Power Platform. That has to do with the performance changes and also the ability to deal with multiple environments, because now you have multiple environments, you want to assign the right environment in your Power Apps or Flow or whatever. So if you use these Business Central connectors, you may need to update them as soon as possible. Your existing ones are not deleted, of course, they will work until the end of this calendar year. However, yeah, you need to update them. So yeah, take immediate attention to that. One note, this change does not apply to the default Business Central Flow templates. So the templates of Business Central, which are available in the so-called store with templates for Microsoft Flow. Therefore, this issue is not applicable. More info is available in the link as well. Next slide, please. So the call to action for you all, be familiar, of course, with the new functionalities. Prepare your functional consultants for a certification program, which will arrive somewhere in the next 9 months. And yeah, maybe you should have a look at your development process to adapt to the cycle of Microsoft. Discuss the options with your customers for migrating to a Business Central SaaS, because it takes some sub-steps. And yeah, you could share the productivity sheet, of course, with your users, also the end customers. Prepare for some changes like the authentication methods, which are deleted, and the changes in the Business Central connectors. So with this, I've shared a lot of new stuff. I know it was a roller coaster speed. We made it barely on time. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on our Gemma pages.
All right, thank you, William. I see that there has been quite a few questions in the chat window, but I think Bernie has covered them all. If anybody, Alexander or curious, if you still think that you lack an answer to one of your questions, please rephrase in the chat window now so that we can follow up. Thank you, Hans-Juin and Alexander. Good. Great. So I think you covered them all, Bernie. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, William?
I would like to agree on the answer of Bernie, that until now, because it's a great question of you pay per user. Do you have to pay per user per environment? But until now, there are no extra costs for it. So yeah, Bernie is right.
Yeah, and Danusia will be copy pasting all questions and answers out of the session as well. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Only 5 minutes passed. I think that was quite impressive, William. You only were given half an hour, so thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll be sending out, as I said, the recording, link to the recording and the session slides. So have a good rest of the day, everybody.
Yep, thanks.